Well, let me share a tale with you that's been passed down around these parts for quite a spell, right here in Kentucky. It's a story that might start off sounding a bit innocent, but stick with me because it ends a little peculiar. You see, there was an old man, a feller that had a real hankering for a coon hunting. And he was getting on in years, and his wife, well, she wasn't too keen on him a traipsing around the woods by his lonesome. For days on end, that old man tried to rope in one of his nephews, or anybody really, to go with him on his hunting ventures. But they all seemed to be caught up in their own doings, and finally he just couldn't stand the wait no more. He tells his wife, "I'm a heading out to hunt tonight." She frets and fusses, telling him, "Well, you shouldn't be out there on your own. What if you get hurt? No one'll find you." But you know how stubborn some folks can get, especially when they've set their mind to something. He gathers up all of his things, his old rifle and his lantern, calls for his old dog, and they head out into the night, wandering and a-searching for any sign of a coon or possum or anything. But luck wasn't on their side. Not at first. It was one of them nights where everything's quiet and almost too quiet. Just as he's thinking about turning back and going on home, there's a rustle in the brush. His old dog perks right up, tail sticking straight out, and both of them are still as stones a watching. And out pops an old possum, and the chase is on. That old possum led him on a merry dance under that bright full moon. It darted this way and that, and with the old man and his dog hot on his trail. Eventually, that old critter skirted into a fallen tree, a big old holler log, and the dog's barking like mad, telling the world he's found something. The old man, seeing that the dog ain't going to fetch it, decides he's going to have to do it himself. Sets his old lantern atop of the tree and leans his old rifle against it and crawls right up into that old log after that old possum. He manages to get a hold of that old possum's tail, but the old critter, he squirms free and scampers deeper up in that log. That old man, he ain't one to give up, and he as determined as ever. He keeps a wriggling himself further up in there until finally he grabs its tail. But when he tries to back out, he finds he's stuck tight. And try as he might, he can't wiggle his way free. Laying there with that old possum's tail still in his grip, he starts to ponder his predicament. He thinks about how no one's going to find him and how his old dog will eventually head home when he gets hungry. And how his wife might think he's run off with some younger woman. He just lays there, old possum's tail in his hand. He says somebody'll come through here and they'll see my old rifle leaned up against that log out there, but they'll not think 1 second about looking up in this tree after me. He said, I'll just die right here. And as years pass, this old tree's going to rot and they'll find my skeleton still hanging on to the possum's tail. He said nobody will ever think about anything about looking up in this log. And as he's laying there, defeated, he starts to reflect on his life. He starts thinking about all the things he wished he had done different, and all the feuds he wished he'd have settled, and all the moments he wished he'd cherished a little bit more. And then his mind, it starts to wander on something a bit peculiar. He started thinking about how he voted on that last presidential election, and all of a sudden he felt about 1 inch tall. And after that, he just stood up and walked out of that tree. He left old Possum behind him. He carried with him the tale that's as wild as the woods of Kentucky. He retrieved his old lantern and his rifle, give his old dog a pat for the effort, and he heads on home. his heart light with the kind of laughter that only comes from escaping a pickle of your own making. And when he gets back home, his wife's waiting for him, half worried sick and half mad enough to tan his hide. But as he starts spinning his yarn, even she can't help but laugh at those sheer foolhardiness and the luck of her husband's adventure. So there you have it, a story from the hills of Kentucky, where the moon shines bright and the tales grow as tall as the trees. But it's a reminder that sometimes life's going to throw you in a situation as sticky as that old log, but with a bit of humor and a whole lot of stubbornness, there ain't nothing you can't walk out of.